So, a random comment on a TikTok. I'm very popular on TikTok. Um, Gave me an idea, and that idea has just kind of sprouted and blossomed. And so it's a big enough idea where I can't talk about it on TikTok because you only have a minute. So I'm going to try to expand that idea here and take this idea and kind of run with it because it's another sorting system and I'm kind of excited about it. So in YA and in magical realism, there's four kinds of monsters, and I'm going to oversimplify their names, even though each kind of monster includes more than one kind of monster. For example, like when I'm talking about vampires, I'm also talking about ghosts and any number of other formerly human undead. Werewolves will be. I'll just define them better. But the four primary antagonists or monsters or whatever, you have your your vampires, your werewolves, your zombies, and your fairies. So those have the varieties just like the Harry Potter houses do. Where and this is how I think of them. And if you think of them differently, I'd love to hear your opinions. But vampires are basically kind of a metaphor for not being able to let things go, for being desperate for relevance, for kind of reaching for things and being unwilling to go on to the next thing. So they're kind of the I don't know, old white people, where they're just kind of like, they're the cool mom who wants to know what the new thing is and wants to be cool and hasn't accepted that there are genes she maybe shouldn't wear because kids are traumatized, or the dad who's still going out drinking with his kids and grandkids and not like having a quiet beer and hanging out and dispensing advice, but like going out to ragers and stuff and still trying to be into it. Werewolves, in my opinion, are kind of representative of being unable to control. No, they're shame. They're about things that you're ashamed of coming out. So, like, if you're super ashamed of being gay, then werewolves are a really good analogy for that. Or if you're an abusive parent and you beat your kids, but then afterward you're just like, I didn't mean it. It was not what I meant to do. I'm very sorry. I love you. Anything creepy like that where it's all about having something that you're ashamed of and then freaking out because of that shame. Um the fairy are aliens. They're fantasy aliens. We can't understand them. We can't get our minds around them. They're quite often tied to body horror. They're quite often, they turn you into something or you're trapped in something, and they steal time. You wake up at 200 years later, everything you know is gone. Zombies are the body's wants. The body's wants with no mind, no spirit, no soul. So eating is the primary thing, but depending on the type of zombie or the other things that I'm grouping with zombies, it's about what you what you want and can't control yourself and can't stop yourself from getting. So, like, if you're addicted to something, or if you can't stop shoplifting, or you can't stop eating when you're sad, or you can't stop having casual sex, or you can't stop cheating on your partner, whatever, those are zombie behaviors. So how this all started was I was talking about ABBA because I'm in Sweden, and there's flavors of ABBA. When I lived in America, I thought ABBA was just ABBA, but no, there's different flavors of ABBA, and I was just kind of musing to myself. I was like, oh, there's like feminist anthem ABBA where you're like, yeah, I don't need a man. There's ABBA that's, kind of fun and dancey. Then there's sad ABBA. And as kind of a joke, I said, and there's also vampire fighting ABBA. There's a song that just makes you would feel good fighting vampires to this song. And I'm like, but then there's a song that you'd feel good to fighting werewolves to. And then in my mind, it just started clicking. And a dude was like, hey, you should make a playlist. And I was like, that sounds awesome. I could sort all of my music that way. That's cool. So then I realized I'm writing, the prequel to a noir, which is basically a YA novel. And I realized that magical realism, which is a big thing right now, has these kind of monsters, and monsters are always metaphors. I've talked about this before. Monsters are always metaphors for the time period that they come from, and they always mean something more than, almost all horror movies are basically just what women have to deal with all the time, being experienced by guys. Big strong people who can do bad things to them, and sometimes even the same bad things. But the thing that I'm really, really fascinated by is this idea that these things are basically our psychoses, and that these things tie into the meanings and the stories that we're trying to tell. Because what we use fantasy sci-fi for, that sure, they're epic stories, and you can take them on the basic level of this is a thing that happened. But if you really, really like them, or you're super into them, or you're even aware of the mechanics, then everything is more than one story. Everything is more than just, Luke Skywalker fighting his dad to save the galaxy. It's also about, the problems with power, and how our power corrupts, and how sometimes the sins of the father are paid for by the son. There's all these metaphors that are tied into the stories. And if you really enjoy stories, you probably are interested in that second or third level too. You're probably interested in the themes and the meanings and the values of the characters. I have trouble following stories where I can't root or I can't understand a character, or where I feel like a character isn't developed well enough. People love Scott Pilgrim, and I think that it's a fascinating idea, and I like all the side characters, but the main character, I just couldn't care about him because he doesn't earn anything. He doesn't have to actually change or grow in any way. And sure, they tack on a earned personal respect or self-respect or something, but he didn't earn it. It wasn't earned. It was given. And it didn't feel like there was a journey there. But the thing that I'm super interested in here is the kind of stories that we can tell with zombies, with vampires, with werewolves, with fairy. Because a lot of people use them as a subconscious trope. But what if it wasn't subconscious? What if it's something that we thought about and that we tried to make sense, and that we tried to have? And so the kind of the initial, I'm probably going to be developing this just like I developed the Harry Potter house thing over years, and it's still developing. But the thing that I'm thinking is that there's monsters that used to be people and aren't now. Which would be monsters that are basically still people, which would be your vampires and your werewolves. And then fairy, who are completely alien. And then zombies, who are everything that makes people taken out. Because they're basically just animals. They're not even animals because they eat when they're not hungry. They're the worst rapacious parts of humanity, without any of the higher thinking and without any of the higher nobility or morality. So the division is still kind of people, not people. And the other division is consume and change. The vampires consume other things and live off of emotions or blood or whatever. And the zombies consume. They don't care what they're eating, they just eat. And then the change would be for werewolves, they change from human lycanthropes of all sorts, any sort of caged beast inside humanity. And the fairy are just change we don't understand. Something we fully don't understand and have no idea of. Sure, we attempt to make them seem human. Sure, we attempt to make them seem like they make sense. We add our own ambition upon them and say, oh, that's what they're like. But we don't actually understand. We don't actually have any idea what the hell they want. We can't. And so it all ties into that. That's my new big idea. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I thought you guys would find it interesting. If you do, great. If you don't, this is just me talking. I'm speaking out into the void. Maybe a couple of you know me and listen. Some of you, I have no idea. You may have subscribed and then never come back. No idea. Hope you're all well. Hope everybody's surviving and thriving in the pandemic. I'm okay. Bye.